Some mysteries refuse to be forgotten. Some legends never fade. And some conspiracies demand to be uncovered. This is Codename Unknown. Mysteries, conspiracies, and legends. Where expert investigator and host Jackson Wolf dives deep into history's most perplexing enigmas, chilling folklore, and secretive cover-ups. Each week, he pushes the boundaries of what we know, uncovering hidden truths and questioning the stories we've been told. The search for answers begins now. Open your mind, question everything, and step into the shadows.
Snow drifted sideways across the tree line as a trapper pushed his canoe onto the frozen shore. Smoke should have curled from the chimneys. Pots should have simmered. Instead, the village was silent. Doors stood ajar, sleds lay ready. A half-mended net waited by the fire pit, but no footprints led away. He called names into the wind, and only ravens answered. In the telling, he found a stew still warm and a rifle propped by a chair, as if people had stepped out of time. That image has echoed for nearly a century in newspapers, book anthologies, and late-night radio. But here is our opening challenge. Did a village truly disappear, or did a story grow taller with every retelling? Tonight on Codename Unknown, we peel back legend from logistics and ask what it means when a community seems to vanish from the map and why it matters. First, definitions. Stories often treat disappearance as a single, spooky category, but there are crucial differences. One is vanish without trace, no documents, no remains, no forward address. Another is abandonment. People leave quickly or slowly, and the place decays in view of everyone. A third is relocation under pressure. A government builds a dam, a mine dries up, a disaster hits, or a military zone expands, and residents are moved, compensated, or coerced. Each path leaves different evidence trails. A stew left warm makes good copy, but tax rolls, parish lists, censuses, school registries, and property deeds reveal continuity or rupture. When we say disappearing village, we are usually seeing the residue of policy, profit, or geology, not an impossible vanishing act after all. To test claims, investigators build a layered toolkit. Start with primary sources, municipal minutes, land transfers, parish registers, and coroner records. Check local papers, not just national tabloids, and look for corrections as well as headlines. Visit archives and talk to librarians. They know where the stubborn boxes live. Compare historical maps with modern satellite imagery to spot submerged foundations, altered shorelines, new roads, and vanished railbeds. Interview elders, then cross-reference names and dates. Evaluate incentives. A sensational story sells copies, secures tourism, or boosts a channel's views. For physical traces, archaeology matters, from ceramic scatters to soil chemistry. In remote regions, tree rings and ash layers can timestamp fire or drought. Finally, weigh eyewitness reliability. Memory edits itself, trauma distorts, and details drift across decades, turning an ordinary relocation into a ghostly legend. Ask who benefits, always financially. Let us return to the Arctic scene many of you know, Anjikuni Lake, Canada, in the 1930s. The classic narrative says a fur trapper arrived to find an Inuit settlement empty, fires smoldering, food prepared, dogs starved, even graves disturbed. It reads like perfect campfire horror. But when researchers chased documentation, a different picture appeared. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police have repeatedly stated they hold no contemporary report of such an incident. The earliest print versions trace to a sensational columnist and later to Fate magazine, both outlets with a taste for embroidery. Names shift between tellings, dates slide. Inuit oral histories from the region speak of seasonal movement and hardship, not a supernatural vanishing. Could a small camp have relocated abruptly? Certainly, Do we have verifiable records of a whole village evaporating? No. The Anji-Kuni file teaches proportional skepticism and respect for indigenous sources. Another frequently cited case comes from Brazil, Joer Verde, a town said to have vanished overnight in the 1920s, leaving only a chalkboard message, "There is no salvation." The story surged online in the 2000s, embellished with grainy photos and references to a vanished police report. Researchers fluent in Portuguese searched national and regional archives, historical gazetteers, census volumes, and newspaper indices. No contemporaneous mention appears. The spelling Joer Verde itself doesn't fit Portuguese naming patterns. It resembles mistranscription. Several circulated images were traced to unrelated Andean communities and stock photography. Without land deeds, parish records, cemetery plots, tax rolls, or credible press, the case sits squarely in the realm of Internet-era folklore. It is an instructive void, a narrative designed for virality, optimized for a shiver and a share, not for verification. Absence here is meaningful data too. Travel to Rajasthan, India, and you will hear of Kuldara, abandoned overnight under a terrible curse after villagers refused the advances of a powerful official. The legend is compelling and deeply local, yet economic and environmental forces press through the narrative. Historical records describe steep taxation under princely states, water scarcity, and shifting trade routes that punished marginal communities. Archaeological surveys document a planned settlement with phased construction, standardized house forms, and later reuse, suggesting gradual depopulation rather than a single flight. Oral histories keep the story alive because it encodes moral judgment about power and protection. Neither version cancels the other. A community can leave for hard material reasons, then mark that leave-taking with a cautionary tale. When guides talk about a curse, I hear a mnemonic for structural pressure, debt, drought, and social negotiations around honor itself. Some disappearances are agonizingly slow. Centralia, Pennsylvania was not erased overnight. It was hollowed out by an underground coal seam fire ignited in 1962. Smoke seeped from the ground, basements filled with carbon monoxide, and a sinkhole nearly swallowed a boy. The state invoked eminent domain, offered buyouts, and demolished homes. The town's few remaining residents fought for years to stay. Online, you will find claims of a secret land grab for anthracite or a cover for toxic dumping. The public record shows decades of engineering reports, court cases, and congressional hearings. The fire is still burning, heat maps and gas measurements are measurable facts. Yet suspicion thrives because the outcome was dispossession and erasure, and because agencies faltered early. Centralia shows how documented environmental causes can seed conspiracy when communication fails and the human cost feels expendable. Transparency and humility might have tempered that. Times Beach, Missouri offers another hard lesson. In the 1970s, waste oil contaminated with dioxin was sprayed on unpaved roads to control dust. Children played in the residue, animals died. After flooding spread contamination, the Environmental Protection Agency bought out the town in the 1980s, relocated residents, and later built a state park on remediated land. From afar, it can look like a neat erasure, a community removed, a sign taken down, a map blanked. But the paper trail is dense: contracts, lab results, lawsuits, property transfers, and Superfund records. Corporate negligence and regulatory failure birthed a conspiracy of consequence, not a hidden disappearance. Times Beach reminds us that sometimes the darker explanation is not a supernatural purge or a secret abduction, but a chain of decisions that privileged convenience over caution until retreat became the only remedy. Costly lessons linger. Then there are the drowned. Reservoir projects have flooded valleys across the world, erasing homes and cemeteries beneath engineered lakes. In Wales, Capel Celyn was taken for a Liverpool water scheme despite fierce local opposition. The word Tryweryn still resonates politically. In Italy's Curon Venosta, a church tower rises from the water, a literal monument to displacement. In France, Tignes was submerged, then rebuilt upslope, its bell tower dynamited despite protests. During droughts, roads reappear, house lines etch mud, and steeples draw photographers, prompting rumors of a re-emerging ghost town. The conspiracy angle often asks, were alternatives considered? Were voices silenced? Was compensation fair? The records are mixed. Feasibility studies exist. So do bruised communities. These are disappearances by design, justified as the price of modern living, and they leave a paper wake that still stings. Memory persists in reunions, plaques, and annual marches too. Nature also makes towns vanish. On Montserrat, the Soufriere Hills volcano buried the capital, Plymouth, in ash and pyroclastic flows during the 1990s. Maps were redrawn and exclusion zones established. In Colombia, the lahar from Nevado del Ruiz engulfed Armero in 1985, killing thousands and turning streets into a slurry of stone and sorrow. Tsunamis erase coastlines, landslides unspool mountainsides, and karst sinkholes swallow blocks without warning. Disasters can obliterate not only structures but also archives, family records, and the capacity to bear witness. In the aftermath, myths flourish because silence fills with explanation. Did authorities warn in time? Who chose to stay? Who could leave? Conspiracy frames sometimes flourish when trauma seeks order. The sobering point, catastrophe leaves messy traces, but they exist in sediment layers, satellite imagery, survivor testimony, and the bureaucratic scars of aid and resettlement programs. War and secrecy have erased communities in ways that blur coercion and necessity. In England, villagers from Imber and Tyneham were evacuated during World War II for military training and never fully returned. Churches stand amid live fire ranges. In Ukraine, Pripyat was evacuated after the Chernobyl disaster and remains within an exclusion zone, its Ferris wheel a postcard of state catastrophe. The Soviet Union and other countries maintained closed cities, absent from maps or labeled with code numbers to shield industry and research. Cartographic censorship has a long history. Strategic sites blurred, borders simplified, entire villages omitted. These choices feed legends because absence on a map can feel like proof of erasure. Yet records surface in property files, veteran testimonies, and declassified memos. Map silence is a clue, not a conclusion, inviting a disciplined search for context and accountability. Economic gravity can empty towns as decisively as fire. Consider Body, California, a gold boomtown that dwindled when ore profits ebbed, preserved now in a state of arrested decay. Or Hashima Island off Nagasaki, once a dense hive of coal mining, abandoned in the 1970s when petroleum undercut coal. In China, Hotuan's terraces turned to green as younger residents left for mainland work, reshaping the village into an ivy-draped dreamscape. Company towns magnify this effect. When the employer leaves, the school, clinic, and store follow. Supply roads fall quiet, a generation departs, and scavengers take what remains. To outsiders, the suddenness looks like mystery. To residents, it felt like math. Falling commodity prices, aging equipment, and no safety net. These disappearances are written in balance sheets, payroll ledgers, and long bus rides out. Memory lingers in reunions and museums. Sometimes the missing town never existed. Cartographers once planted paper towns and trap streets in their maps to catch plagiarism, a fake cul-de-sac, a non-existent hamlet, a tiny bend that should not be there. Aglow, New York, began as such a copyright trap in the 1930s, invented by mapmakers Otto G. Lindbergh and Ernest Alpers. Then a general store appeared at the crossroads and adopted the name, transforming fiction into fleeting reality. Later, when maps removed Aglow, legends sprouted about a vanished place. This cartographic playfulness fuels confusion online. A screenshot becomes proof. A GPS pin breeds certainty. The lesson is careful triangulation. Check multiple map editions, national surveys, and gazetteers. A dot on one layer can be a decoy or a joke, not a census-backed settlement. Ask locals and inspect land registry entries for anomalies. How do you spot a hoax or an overgrown rumor? Start with the source. If every retelling points back to one columnist, one blog, or one anonymous caller, you have a red flag. Look for anachronisms, technologies, police ranks, slang, or place names that do not fit the claimed decade. Reverse image search photographs to see if they were lifted from unrelated disasters. Comb local records. If a whole town disappeared, the nearest city's paper likely noticed. Beware of narratives that accrete paranormal flourishes over time, like blue lights in the sky added in later editions. Note recycled quotes, the same misspellings, or a script-like cadence across articles. Finally, interrogate motive and mechanism. If the claim alleges a cover-up, what agency, by what process, with what budget, and toward what end? Specifics expose soft spots. Timeline diagrams often reveal contradictions and gaps fast. Ready to test a disappearing village near you? Here is a pragmatic sequence. 1. Define the claim in one sentence with a date range and location. 2. Pull historic maps for the area across decades. Note when names appear and vanish. 3. Search local newspapers by town, parish, and landmark names. Log first and last mentions. 4. Visit the county clerk or land registry. Trace property transfers, condemnations, and eminent domain filings. 5. Check school rolls, church registers, cemeteries, and business directories. 6. Scan environmental databases for contamination, floodplain changes, mines, or fire history. 7. Interview elders, record carefully and request documents to photograph. 8. Cross-reference with satellite imagery for foundations, roadbeds, and shoreline shifts. 9. Build a timeline with citations. 10. Publish a brief, transparent summary and invite correction. Slow, polite persistence beats a dramatic leap. Share sources, methods, and unresolved questions openly. That is our journey through the disappearing village. From Arctic legends to Kuldhara's layered memory, from Centralia's smoldering fact to drowned valleys, disaster, secrecy, economic gravity, and maps that sometimes lie. Along the way, we practiced skepticism without cynicism and treated human stories with care. When covert scenarios are plausible, industrial contamination buried, strategic depopulation, or land taken cheap, the tells are concrete. Internal memos, whistleblowers, budget lines, altered permits, and independent sampling that survives scrutiny. Ethics matter. Many erasures involve grief, so lead with respect and let communities set terms. If you have a town, documents, photos, or family accounts, send them in. We will feature select cases in a follow-up investigation. This is Codename Unknown. I am Jackson Wolf. Stay curious, and I will see you next time soon.
You've been listening to Codename Unknown, Mysteries, Conspiracies, and Legends. The search for answers never stops, and the truth is always waiting to be uncovered. If you enjoyed the journey, subscribe to us, and don't miss what's next. Until next time, stay curious and keep questioning everything.